What's the use, by the way? What's the use of having all this knowledge, all this profound knowledge, if it dies with you? A leader is somebody who leads himself out of leadership.
He makes himself redundant, or
Precisely.
she makes herself redundant.
Precisely.
But because of this lack of self-confidence, people never get to that because they become defined by this thing that they're doing, and they don't see themselves as much bigger and better than what they're doing currently.
Miles Monroe speaks more eloquently about it than I could ever do. He says, if you're a leader and there's a time for you to exit the stage and you haven't developed leaders, you're not a leader.
Hi, my name is Veli, Ndaba, the NeuroEngineer. I'm all about transforming minds from a place of mental darkness to mental light. Why mental light? Mental light because our dreams belong in mental light. Our dreams are found in mental light. And welcome to the NeuroEngineering podcast for leaders. This is where we unpack effective leadership, and this is where we talk about how we can be the best human beings that we can be. And today I'm joined by a very good friend of mine, that is Theo Mapheto, who will be sharing with us some of his takes and some of his perspectives with regards to effective leadership. And I think without wasting too much time on that, I would like to introduce him to you. Theo Mapheto, how are you doing, sir?
And well, how are you?
I'm very well. And I think I would like you just to talk to us around, your upbringing, and what really influenced you as a young person to want to achieve greater things in life. Because, whatever we do in life is because we're influenced by something. Yes. We're gonna delve into the specifics, but I'm just saying what really drove you to want to become a greater person in life. What did you say about that? How was growing up, for you?
I grew up in a village in Limpopo province. It's not too far from the city of Polokwane, 45 k's or thereabouts from Polokwane. Okay. Typical rural setting, no electricity, local school, you go to the local school. And fortunately, you have teachers who sort of realize the potential that you have. Yeah. And from that early age, you have people, despite the circumstances, who tell you that you are destined for greater things. Wow. And that sort of builds up your confidence. That's why I'm very, very particular about the upbringing of children, upbringing of any kids in the world. You've got to make sure that you instill some kind of values at an early age. Yeah. Most of these things don't happen by accident. Yeah. They happen because somebody was intelligent enough, somebody had the vision to pour in some water in a bucket. Yes. For rainy days, for dry seasons. Yes.
Wow, fantastic. And when you look at these things, you are an attorney, one of the esteemed attorneys around, and I'm just so pleased.
You are too kind. You are too kind.
But that's exactly, I know, because of your humility. You look at it that way, and I think for me, because I normally talk about how I started off as an engineer,
yes.
Mechanical engineer, but how I ended up, sort of like not practicing it after a number of years that yes. I was in practice. Now just to get to deal with things like neuroscience and human evolution and that. So for you, maybe talk to us about becoming a legal practitioner, becoming an attorney that you are. So in terms of the journey, that you embarked on. And also, what do you think it really takes for one to reach the levels that you have reached to become an attorney? Yeah. Just from someone who's maybe in matric or in high school, what did you say to that person? Maybe an 18, 19-year-old?
I'm fascinated by the written word and the spoken word. Yeah. And when you are a lawyer, whether an attorney or an advocate, yeah. you've got to enjoy words. Yeah. Words have to sound like music to your ears. Okay. So that's because if you think about it, Ndaba, when you represent a client in court yeah. and you are advocating for a particular position, The other side might probably be doing exactly the same.
Yeah.
The difference would be how you articulate that position to the presiding officer, be it a judge or a magistrate. So I'm fascinated by that. So to answer your question specifically, if one wants to become a successful lawyer, and I'm using the word generically because you have advocates, you also have attorneys.
Yes.
If one wants to become a successful lawyer, you've got to read a lot, read as much as possible. You know, there's an old man who's now passed on, very esteemed, very successful author, Eskiam Patlele, who came to my alma mater, the University of Limpopo then, and told us one thing. He says, you must read and read until it hurts.
Yeah.
So that's the sort of the basic premise. If one wants to succeed in this particular field, you've got to be able to read as much as possible.
Yeah.
Because you with reading, you gain knowledge, don't you? And you are able to apply that knowledge.
Yes. Now, when it comes to reading, do you think it's a skill that one can develop, or is someone just born a natural reader, or what did you say? Is it something that you have to?
It can be taught.
Too much time?
It can be taught.
Yeah.
It can be taught. And back to the introductory remarks that I made. You've got to start at an early age. The earlier you start, the better. Let's talk about Barcelona, for instance.
Yeah.
The soccer team.
Yes.
There's a saying, my Spanish is not up to scratch, but they say it's more than a club.
Okay.
You know what they do? They take 9-year-olds, 8-year-olds, and train them. Life skills, education, football. I mean, it's a given. That's why they excel the manner that they do. But you've got to start at that age. Yeah. If you don't start at that age, then you might have a bit of a problem. In my language, we say tuba ikobya isale inyani isale metsana. So that's how you do it. So you can teach it. You must teach it. Yeah. Although I'm emphasizing that you've got to start at an early age, but it's never too late.
Yes.
It's a skill that you can acquire as you go along.
Because it becomes like a game that you play. Because when you are standing in front of a judge, you're representing your client.
Yes.
Like what you refer to as, it's like music to your ears. For you, when you look at words, I enjoy that as well.
Yeah.
That's
why I like you so much.
Oh man, thank you. So when you look at these things, and I think when you like playing around with words, and even now when people keep on asking me, but you're an engineer, how did you cross the line?
How did you make the transition?
And people look at it, and the reason I was asking you the question, are they made to learn how to read or to love reading, or is it something that is innate? In them? Is it something that, is intrinsic in them? And I think it's also a combination, because genetically it's something like for me, I enjoyed reading.
Yes.
But when you look at it as an engineer, you sit there, you have to come up with designs and that. But I enjoy talking to people. Yes. I think I enjoyed designing with words than designing with steel and material. Physical material. And that's something that I really enjoy. So when you look at people who are young, spend too much time watching TV and on TikTok and that. So if people want to be lawyers, so you'll say, instead of that, maybe they must exchange that with reading books or something like that? What would you say to that person?
You've put the nail on the head, right? You see, television. Yeah. Television is a passive pastime. It's not active. You don't apply your mind necessarily.
Yeah.
That's why too much TV is not good. I encourage people all the time. If you can read more than you watch TV, you are already on a journey to self-actualization.
Yes.
Because what does a book do? You read, and then you enhance your visualization. Yeah. It's very, very important, because you've got to be able to visualize England without having stepped your foot in England. Yeah. And how do you do that? By reading.
Yeah.
TV gives you stuff as is.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? You don't have to visualize anything.
Yeah.
That's a problem. And to again answer your question, you see the thing is, we like things that are easy. And it's easy to watch TV, is it not?
Yeah, it is. It is.
As opposed to actually applying your mind and reading something.
Very true. You know, it reminds me of one of my high school teachers who used to say that when you open the book, you open the world.
Yes.
However old the book is, because whatever has been written in that book, or whatever is written in the book, it's something that is new to you, and it's someone else's idea, and it's someone else's thought.
How wonderful.
You know, that he decided that to pen it down. So when you open that, it's always an opportunity for you to expand your thinking, to expand your knowledge. So reading, and I think those are such things that inspired me
Beautiful.
to enjoy reading and to enjoy things like debates,
Exactly.
you know, getting in there and twisting the same thoughts but differently.
Precisely.
And I
Precisely.
think, yeah.
You know, there's a quote. There's a quote that has left an indelible impression on my mind.
Yeah.
They say reading is like traveling.
Yeah.
A person who doesn't read, or a person who doesn't travel, is like a person who's only read one page of a book.
Wow. Wow.
So reading is exactly like traveling.
Yeah.
Because what does it do? It takes you out of your comfort zone.
Yeah.
You expand your mind. You expand your mind to receive new knowledge, new things.
Yeah.
Think about it. If you grow up in Soweto, work in Soweto, and die in Soweto,
Sure.
by the time you die, what would you have learned?
But to someone who is in that situation, doesn't see anything wrong.
No, you never see anything wrong.
You hear them saying, "Oh my goodness, I'm the man." You know, I know, but it's only, you know, something very limited.
If you grew up in sort of the kind of village that I grew up in, you have the perception that the girls in the village are the best looking girls in the world until you go to Polokwane and you're like, oh jeez. And until you expand even more, you go to Johannesburg and you're like, oh man. So it's almost criminal to borrow from the legal terminology. Yeah. It's criminal not to want to expand your mind. Because you know what? God has given you a sponge.
Yes.
Instead of absorbing as much as possible, you don't want to use the sponge.
Yes.
It's criminal.
Yeah, absolutely. And I love this. Now, when it comes to, you know, like the elements of leadership, you know, because every fraternity, you know, you're talking about, you know, like law, you're talking about engineering, you're talking about accounting, you're talking about finance, they all have this leadership aspect to them. And what would you say? How to be, you know, like an effective leader in a space of, or when you talk about legal fraternity? Have you ever experienced someone whom you will say is an effective leader? And for you, what does that look like? If someone is an effective leader, what does it really mean to you? If we were to paint the picture to maybe to our viewers and say, an effective leader, based on what I know, is a person like this, maybe in terms of traits and things like that.
Miles Monroe speaks more eloquently about it than I could ever do.
Yeah.
He says, if you're a leader and there's a time for you to exit the stage, and you haven't developed leaders, you're not a leader. You understand? So a leader must have the vision and the wisdom and the courage to develop people who are going to be better than him.
Yes.
I mean, this is what I used to tell students when I was still working for UNISA. I would tell them, listen, I want to train you to be better than me.
Yeah.
As simple as that. That's why I'm a hard, if you ask me, a hard leader. Hard leader in the sense that I like people who are decisive. You've got to be decisive. You've got to know. You've got to have the ability to craft a vision.
Yes.
And marshal all the forces toward the vision.
Yes.
If you're a leader and you can't inspire people towards a vision, then you're not a leader. So a leader has to be decisive, has to say, this is the kind of journey, this is the kind of direction that we're going to take.
Yes.
We might be wrong because, things happen. They say ish happens. You might be wrong. But the best decision to make in the world is to make a decision.
Yeah.
As opposed to the other way around, where you are indecisive, you don't know whether you're coming or going. That's not leadership.
And trying to please everyone.
A leader who pleases everybody ends up a follower.
Wow, I love that. I love that.
So when you're a leader, there are people who are not going to like your style, who are not going to like your vision,
Yes.
who won't like you, period. But do you stop from going north because somebody doesn't like you? If you have visualized somebody says the appointment with the future. If you visualize the appointment with the future, nobody has to stop you. Nobody can stop you. No train, no aeroplane, no human being can stop you.
True.
So that's if you ask me, that's the kind of leadership
Yes.
that inspires me. And their names. It doesn't have to be political leadership or legal
Absolutely.
fraternity. All across the globe, I'm inspired by leaders who are able to take a stand and stick by it.
And someone was just talking, and I remember I was listening to some people when we were talking about these things, to say, when you look at, specifically when it comes to the political landscape,
Yes.
Maybe of our country and maybe other countries, but specifically of our country, was asking the question, why is it that we've got all these small parties that are mushrooming and everyone believes that they can lead? Why is that? Is it because they don't have like the high level of leadership that is being portrayed, or the benchmark is set too low? That people can just go out and say, no, I can be a leader as well.
Yes.
Because when you look at the likes of the Mandelas and the Oliver Tambos and that, for an example, the MLKs,
Yes.
you look at the level of leaders that you spoke about.
Yes.
It was, parties were very few. Yes, we talked about democracy, but what would you say? Is it because the bar, the benchmark when it comes to, leadership, has it actually lowered? Why would everyone now think that they can be, think that they can be a leader? A leader.
This question is very close to my heart. Because, as I say, everything stands or falls on leadership.
Yeah.
In fact, the kind of problems that you are alluding to, societal problems, is precisely because of lack of leadership.
Okay.
And there seems to be a misunderstanding because we're thinking of leadership in terms of people who are wearing suits and who are standing on podiums and positions, titles.
Yeah.
There's that book, How to Lead Without a Title,
Yes.
or whatever. So we're thinking of leadership in those terms. But leadership, one of the greatest sons of the soil, Robert Mangaliso Sobukwe,
Wow.
tells us one thing that has stuck with me. He says, a leader must have the humility, so much humility that he can go to the river and fetch water for his people.
Yeah.
So we're thinking of leadership in terms of what we admire from a distance.
Yeah.
Big cars, standing on podiums, title.
Yeah.
But a leader is somebody who is able to lower himself to the status of the lowest of the lowest.
So, in short,
They do say, just to complete the thought, they say, if service is beyond you, if service is beneath you, rather, if service is beneath you, then leadership is beyond you.
Oh, that's power. I love that. And so you are saying leadership is not just about being served, but it's being able to serve. That's exactly that. Leaders are servants. hence we're talking about servant leadership.
Yes.
So that's one of the elements of effective leadership.
Yes.
Because leadership can just be leadership, but how to lead effectively is when you are able to serve those that you lead.
So a leader who is able to, say, inspire people, who's able to stand in front of people, but who lacks the servanthood.
Yes.
He's not an effective leader. Because you know what the difference is? When you're a servant, you are able to say, if I'm a plumber, I'm the head plumber.
Yeah.
My junior plumbers have to see from me how we clean up.
Yeah.
If I think I'm beyond the cleaning up, I'm above the cleaning up, they would never be able to learn.
Yeah, true.
So that's how it starts. A servant is somebody who's able to go, as I said, to the lowest of the low.
Yes. And I love it. And just to revisit the issue of your, of your profession, as a lawyer, as an attorney, as a legal practitioner, as one of those terminologies. Now, let's talk about someone.
Why I'm iffy, as it were. Why I'm iffy about talking about this, because I don't want to be defined as an attorney or as a legal practitioner.
Okay.
I'm much more beyond. I'm much more than that.
And I love that. So what I wanted to when I used that,
I'm a neuroengineer.
Oh my goodness! Welcome home, man. Welcome home. And I think the reason why I'm using this, using an attorney, I'm using it as a reference point, for someone, because that's what is getting used.
Yes.
So because I wanted to say, for an example, maybe in few steps, here is someone in rural Limpopo.
Yes.
Here is someone in rural KZN. Here is someone in rural, Free State or wherever.
Yes.
Even in townships, someone is listening to this podcast and is saying, what is an attorney? What is a lawyer? And how can I actually get myself to become one? And what does it take? And how can how many years? What does it really take for me to get there? Maybe what picture can you paint for that person? Maybe in few steps and very tangible, steps.
So
from matric, maybe you get to matric level,
yes.
And then what happens after that?
You get to matric, and I assume that you have probably realized the kind of person that you are. You've got to be a person, one who is passionate about reading.
Okay.
Who's passionate about words,
Okay.
spoken word and the written word. And then you decide to go to university to enroll for your legal studies.
Yes.
It's a 4-year program, undergraduate studies. It's called LLB.
Okay.
So you study that, and you complete.
Okay, the 4-year program.
The 4-year program.
Okay.
And then upon completion, you have a choice to make. You either want to become an attorney or an advocate. If you want to become an attorney, then you serve articles under an attorney.
Okay.
And they train you up until you write your board exam. And once you pass your board exam, then you can be admitted as an attorney.
Okay.
The other route is when you want to become an advocate, you serve a program called pupillage. You become a pupil. And once you have undergone that program, you can write what we call bar exam. If you succeed, then you will be admitted as an advocate.
So what are the main differences? Maybe one or two between an attorney and an advocate, because I think that
our legal system has borrowed extensively from the English legal system. In England, you have sort of two streams: a solicitor, which is an equivalent of an attorney in the country, and a barrister, which is our version of an advocate.
Okay.
Traditionally and historically, an advocate would be somebody who specializes in high court work. They specialize in advocacy.
Okay.
How to advocate for a case, for a stance in court, whilst attorneys would be generalists. They would perform general work, consult with clients, take instructions, and then refer those instructions to an advocate who would then argue that case in court. So there was that sort of distinction historically. But with the advent of legislation now, that distinction has sort of been blurred, because you have attorneys like myself who appear and who are able to argue matters in the High Court.
Oh, okay. Yes. Okay. Wow. That's so that after that 4-year program, so the process of, like doing articles and being a pupillage,
yes,
as you're saying, whether you're going to go through or via the stream of an attorney, yes, or that of an advocate. So you're looking at what time period is that? Is that another 2-3 years?
You're looking at 2 years, 2 years to 3 years.
Okay.
Yeah, but with the process of becoming an attorney, there is a program in between, which is called practical legal training.
Okay.
Where you get trained in class for 6 months or so, but in a practical sense. Yeah. If you go through that program, then you can sort of shorten your period of articles to 1 year. But if you don't go through that program, then your period of articles is the mandatory 2 years or so.
Okay. So this is mainly for people who are, who find joy, and excitement in playing with the written words and spoken words and just reading, just to. So if you're a creative person, you like to draw out things and you like to be artistic and that. So would you recommend, going through this route? I
would recommend a different route.
Okay. Okay.
Precisely because of the answer lies in what you just said. The practice of law relies very heavily, very extensively on precedent.
Okay.
So when say there's a case that is going to be argued in court, I, as a legal representative, would have to go and research precedent. How did the courts decide on a similar set of facts?
Yes.
So you can go as far back as 1800s, the 17th century, to find precedent. That's why, you would know. That's why if you go to a lawyer's office, there is law reports, wall-to-wall law reports. You've got to read that stuff to be able to articulate your client's case better, and to be able to convince, which is probably the most crucial responsibility, to be able to convince the judge or the presiding officer.
So you can't just look at it as a job. It's something that you enjoy doing.
It's more than a job. I was talking about Barcelona a while ago, and the saying, it's more than a club. It's got to be more than a job, surely.
Yes,
it's got to be more than a job.
Because
it's a calling.
It's a calling. And someone was talking about that and was saying, until something is, until you're obsessive about something, yes, you'll never be good at it. And I think it's something that we need to emphasize on that. Until you're obsessed about it, then you'll never master it.
Exactly.
So I think you've got to look at something that you're obsessed, with.
Yes.
Otherwise, then it becomes an issue.
You've got to do your 1,000 hours.
Even more.
Even more.
Thank you very much, Theo, for clarifying that. And I think it's very important because we also carry this responsibility where we need to transform minds from a place of mental darkness to mental light. And what that means is that people need to be empowered, because there are people who are watching, these podcasts. And they need to be educated as well to say, wow, I like to see this, and I'm learning a lot from this, because I'm a better person now than I was, an hour or a few minutes ago.
Yes.
And I think that's a responsibility that we're carrying. And that's part of leadership that we've spoken about. It's not about you, but it's about shedding some light on others, which is basically a privilege that we didn't have before, because some of us, we battled.
Exactly.
I mean, there were very few people who will talk about what I'm talking about
exactly.
today.
Can I
Same
tell you?
with
Can
you.
I tell you what my beef with our curriculum is?
Yeah.
We are not churning out well-rounded individuals.
Yeah.
And that's why I contested you a bit when you wanted to define me as a lawyer, and I'm like, I'm more than that.
Yeah.
We pigeonhole people into a nurse, a doctor, a lawyer, da 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 da.
Yeah.
But proper education, as I understand it, you have to train people to become critical thinkers. So that when you come with an engineering concept, I would have the ability, the wherewithal, to analyze it, interpret it, and apply some knowledge to it.
Yes.
It's very, very important. You might be a lawyer, well and good, but you've got to be how do you contribute to society?
Yeah.
How does that knowledge that you have contribute to society? It's very, very important. Again, Sobukwe tells us that about education. He says education has to be service to humanity.
Yes. And maybe just on that thought, I think that's why it must come back to an individual in terms of your passions. What are you passionate about? Where you need to claim yourself out of that sort of like head mentality, where people say you have to become this, because obviously when you look at it, for you to get an employment, you can't just be a journalist. You can get that, but I think that's where the concept came in, to say you've got to be an engineer for you to do this.
Exactly.
You've got to be an accountant for you to do this. You need to be.
But don't be limited by that.
But you shouldn't be limited by that. But because of that, because sometimes people become that. Like I would have easily become, an engineer. I would have easily, stayed in the field. But I realized that there was more in me.
Yes.
And besides just being more, when you choose careers, we're young. You're 18, you're 19. What do you know about life?
Yeah.
Because life is about self-discovery.
Yeah.
Every time you search for yourself, every time you try things out, you discover more about yourself and say, wow, I never thought, like for me, 10, 15 years, or 15, 20 years ago, I wouldn't have imagined that today I'll be talking about the neuroscience and leadership, neuroscience and human behavior. And I would never have thought that today I would have authored 5 books. I never, but that came through curiosity. And I think because for me, I had to reconnect with my curiosity.
By the way, when you're talking about your books, I don't think I sent you a picture. I was on a plane in December. I didn't tell you this.
Yeah.
And I'm reading your book. I'm like, I have to send my brother this picture. It now dawns on me that I didn't send you that picture, by the way. Yeah. So you are read worldwide, my brother.
Oh, my brother, thank you so much.
Beautiful achievement.
Thank you so much.
And it's important, by the way, it's important that we put pen to paper.
Yes.
Why is it important? Because we are doing it for generations to come, for posterity. What's the use, by the way? What's the use of having all this knowledge, all this profound knowledge, if it dies with you?
Absolutely. And my mentor used to say, success without successors is failure. And it comes back to something that you alluded to earlier on, but he was using different words to say success without successors is failure. Yes. So when you think you are successful and yet you did not create others to continue, the journey without you and even do it better, so it simply means that you have failed as a person.
In fact,
but we
put differently, they do say that a leader is somebody who leads himself out of leadership.
He makes himself redundant, or
Precisely.
She makes herself redundant.
Precisely.
But because of this lack of self-confidence, people never get to do that, because they become defined by this thing that they are doing. Yes. And they don't see themselves as much bigger and better than what they are doing currently. Yes. So I think for me, that's something that's important. And maybe just the next question, when you look at the state of how we're doing things, in terms of like leadership, we spoke about leadership. What do you think? Would you say leaders are born or are they made? What's your take on that one, based on what you have experienced? Would you say are they born or made? I know there are people who they've got different perspectives, around this.
Yes.
What would you say? Would you say
you and I have argued about this before, and you're going to be embarrassed because I'm going to take your answer. I don't look at it as an either or paradigm.
Yeah.
Right? So you could have, you could be blessed, you could be endowed with some abilities that I don't have. Yeah. That's almost a natural state of things, if you think about that. There are people who are faster. Usain Bolt is faster, certainly, faster than you and me. Yeah. But if Usain Bolt didn't work on his craft, I don't think he would be as much of a celebrated athlete that he is now.
True.
So whether or not you have something, if you don't work on it, it will never amount to anything.
True.
I don't want to obsess over that distinction quite a lot. Yeah. I'm saying we are all born with some level of ability. Yeah. In whatever sphere, in whatever field. Ours is to find out, to discover ourselves, what is it that I'm excelling in?
Yes.
And then what you do, you work on it.
Yes.
You work on your craft.
And become the best at it.
Martin Luther King says, by all means, you must excel in whatever you want to do. Be an excellent sweeper, so that the angels of heaven could come and admire the streets that you've swept. As simple as that.
And I love that. And
you love it, don't you?
I very much love it. And just maybe wrapping up that part of leadership, whether leaders are born or made, because I bring in the neuroscience element to it. And first of all, I think it's important to understand what leadership is all about. We've got people who are technicians and people who are very good at what they do. Technically speaking,
gifted.
Yes, they're technically gifted. Mm. But when it comes to leadership is mainly about people.
True.
It's not about fixing things.
True.
You can be so good mechanically or technically speaking. So when you talk about leadership, the interest should shift from fixing to helping people become great fixers.
Yeah, exactly.
And do it with passion.
Spot on.
And that's where people are mixing it to say whether they're born or made. But surely some people are more, inclined towards people. They are just, if they say you are a people's person, like I'm one, I just love that. And I can just go out of my mind if I were to sit there and then fix things by myself, and I sit there all the time.
Because when
I'm telling you, but there are people who are good at that, who are more introverted. Yes. I'm not too introverted, that I can sit there and work behind the scenes. I'm not the behind the scenes kind of a guy. I've got instances where I need to go behind the scenes, but I cannot be trapped there. So I want to be out there and do what I do. So I think it comes with some personality. It comes also with some genetics. You need to have something in you, because it's one of those things that you either have or not have. Yes. You only have one Mandela. Yeah. You only have one MLK. You only have one Gandhi. Yes. So when people, and there are no two people who are alike. No two people, even identical twins, are not the same. In the entire world, even identical twins, they are not the same, because the brain wiring is different. So those are the things that you need to look at. We all have strengths, but now the question is, how do you use your strengths? Exactly. Because people become or are made leaders because they are good technically, because they've performed so well technically, and they got promoted, and then they get to levels where the organizations or people are saying, oh, what can you do with you to give you more money, then we're going to make you a leader. Instead of creating this parallel stream of technical abilities and dealing with people. Yes. So how do we do that? So that's why even when you look at it in football, or especially in football, I mean, someone can be a great player. Yes. I mean, look at the Maradonas. Yes. They became great, but when
that
he became a coach,
translate very well as a coach.
No, you can only influence.
Yeah. You can only
the way
influence.
You get, but it doesn't make you a great leader. Yeah.
So even now, by the way, with now that you're talking about football, at this moment, Sundowns happens to be
dominating. Yes.
Dominating. It's Sundowns season, by the way.
Absolutely.
And I like the football. I like the football that they play. Rulani Mokoena is not a former footballer. I don't think he's ever kicked a football in his life.
Yeah. In his dreams, and maybe he did. Yeah.
You said it, I didn't. But what a wonderful, wonderful leader.
Yeah.
Because of precisely what we have spoken about as well. You able to craft a vision, and then you encourage and marshal your people to follow that vision.
And also one thing that I think that stands out, about him, he's insanely passionate about football.
He's obsessed.
He's obsessed.
Says it.
That's what I'm saying. I mean, if you look at when he analyzes the games and talking about these things, you can see the guy does his homework. I mean, the people will tell you he sleeps, he eats,
he says there's times where they complain that he's not sleeping enough.
Yeah. Now, you see at times when it goes to that level, sometimes it can be a problem to you because,
yes.
I mean, health-wise. So such things sometimes. And when that happens, I mean, I'm even sharing with the viewers, when you don't even have time to go offline and to recover from what you're doing, it affects your thinking abilities. Yes. You find yourself not thinking well because you have something that is called cognitive fog. It means you are always clouded in terms of your judgment. You can't think straight.
Yes.
So that affects you mentally. So your well-being is affected. So yes, you may love something, love it so well. I love what I do. I love speaking. I love, running workshops, moderating things. I love writing.
But you've got to
I always
sleep.
create time. I've got to sleep because sleeping is a natural necessity.
Yes.
It's not something that's a nice to have. It's not a luxury.
Exactly.
That when you're sleeping is because you don't have much to do. But you understand the importance of you recovering and getting rejuvenated as well to become stronger and to be re-energized.
Precisely.
So I think for me that's something that's important. And maybe we're just coming to the end, of our podcast. And I just want to find out from you, when you look at how humans behave and why people do what they do, is there anything that, because I'm mostly asking questions, is there any question that you may want to ask? I'm just asking you from the brain perspective, either it's leadership or human behavior, why people do what they do. Is there only one thing that maybe that is always fascinating you to say, wow, I wonder why people are doing that?
It's a whole lot of things. But I think it pivots back to what we've been talking about. Why is it that in some instances an entire family, stroke community, stroke nation, is sort of inclined to act in a particular way? You understand where I'm coming with this?
Okay.
Right. So that's my question. That's something that has been worrying me. For quite some time. Why is it that you would have a particular set of people behaving in a particular way?
Okay. So how I would like to answer that from based on neuroscience. When you look at, it's a beautiful question. It fascinates me. I just love that. So when you look at human evolution, either going back, like a few million years ago, so there were so many threats that were happening in the savannah because people, our prehistoric ancestors, they had to eat, and they had to go, hunting. And if they were to go out there in the wilderness,
and they didn't have McDonald's. They didn't have McDonald's.
They didn't have McDonald's, and they needed to have, to go hunting, for these big, animals. And for them to go out there, they were exposed because those animals as well were going to attack them.
Mortal danger.
They were seriously
mortal
dangerous. I mean, like we call them saber-toothed tigers. They were lions, and they were big snakes as well. So whenever they went there, they couldn't just go there alone. One wouldn't go there alone to go hunting. They had to form this community so that when they go out there, they will be able as a team to fight together to kill that big animal so that they will eat. Why is it that they had to form communities? Communities meant safety. They meant support. They meant belonging. They meant that I'm part of this community, I'm part of this society, I'm part of this team, and we all have a common interest. So whenever you were within a team, you felt very safe. And that got wired.
Strength in numbers.
Strength in numbers. That got wired in our system.
DNA.
So that's why when you look at our DNA, we are not just logical beings, but we are social creatures. We are made to belong, to be part of the group. And that's where now the issue of herd mentality comes in.
Yes.
Because people don't want to be to be embarrassed or to feel that they are being singled out or they are treated as an outcast. Because before, when someone was treated as an outcast, that meant death.
They'll be
because
lynched.
you are being exposed to the enemy. When they found you alone, there are no numbers. It means you are weak, and then they will devour you. So whenever they were in numbers, that meant survival. That was about survival, and hence we ended up having things like procreation that happened, and people were just growing in numbers. So that came as a way of protecting each other and continuing with with life, because hence generations have actually moved and given rise to generations and generations, and hence we are here today. So that's why even when you look at things like your fashion industry thrives in numbers. When they get that, when people say, this is now what is in fashion, this is the style that is in now. If you don't look the same and people look at you as like, wow,
true.
What's wrong with you? And people want to belong.
True.
So that sense of belonging came from that, because as human beings,
that's quite a valid point, by the way, because when you're talking about fashion, there would be trends that are ahead of their time.
Yes.
But eventually people might catch up. But at the time you start the trend, you are literally alone.
Yes, and that now, because it became part of the hardwiring inside the brain. So because it's part of us, whenever something happens, those were physical fears. And now we are dealing with emotional and social fears. Now, physical fears were that one of being attacked by these big animals and killed. Now, social fears are those ones about social threats, like being embarrassed, like being ridiculed, like fear of losing something. They've got nothing to do with physical threats, but they are wired in us until you understand them. And that's what Veli Ndaba is about. So I help people deal with those.
Let me tell you something controversial when you're talking about this. And I want to make a concrete example to relate to what you're saying. That's why, for instance, you and I have some experience in the townships, for instance. There would be somebody who is driving around town or the burbs strapped in, like seatbelt on.
Yes.
And you get to the township, what do? You take it off.
Yeah, others, they even, like Bridget.
Yeah, from behind. Yeah. You know why? Because you might end up being ridiculed.
Absolutely.
Like,
where's this one from? That's exactly why. It's because people end up not doing the right things because they think they're going to lose face. So this losing of face.
Profound.
How many people, when people have to do things and you ask them, but why are you not doing this? What are people going to say? That's a social fear. So it comes back to that. It's not about physical fear, but it's a fear of losing face because you're going to be seen as an outsider. So if you're part of the group, you feel safe because that's why people end up ganging up against someone. And that's what forms trends. And people sort of like doing things the same way. And some of them inside, they are crumbling. But because they don't want to look like the odd one out, the odd ones out. They want to do something so that they appear to belong because it means safety, it means support. This is something that is inherently in us. We are born that way, but we need to be able now to understand, to say, now we're not dealing with those physical fears. If I lose, so what? But it takes some sort of confidence and coaching. That's why I come in as a coach as well to say, now, so if they say, if you do it, they're gonna say you've done it. If you didn't do it, they say you didn't do it. So what? This is your life. That's where most people lose their dreams. because they live their lives to appease many people, because it's part of us wanting to belong, because we are social creatures. So that's the reason why. So I thought, let me just explain that.
I like what you're saying, because to put it in proper context, those who follow don't necessarily want to be marked out. They don't want to stick out.
Yeah.
But if you look at history across the world, the few individuals who've been able to influence the direction of history are people who marked themselves out.
Absolutely.
You couldn't have been a Mahatma Gandhi, for instance, if you lacked the courage to do the kind of things that he did.
And that's why you had Martin Luther King Jr. saying, if you're not willing to stand and die for what you believe in, you're not fit to live.
Yes.
And I said, wow.
Yes.
If you're not willing to stand for what you believe is true for you, then you're not fit to live. And that's why he
reminds me of another quote where I think it goes like, if you don't stand for anything, then you'll fall for everything.
That's exactly that.
Man.
So people who make it in life are people who are saying, I'm in touch with who I am. If they laugh, let them do so.
I see.
But I'm okay. So it's part of like now.
But that entails a lot of courage, man.
Now it's the courage and self-understanding. When you are confident in yourself and you are confident in your stuff and in what you do, that's what becomes. We got to that point where we are saying, I don't care about people. If I fail, so what? And if you look at a typical person, they say, oh, I'm not going to do this. What are people going to say? Oh, I can't wear this. What are people going to say? So that's because of something that is inherent.
If I start up a podcast, what would people say?
What are going to? But because I say to people, one fear that I had to deal with in my life was to expose myself and saying, English is not my first language. I'll try the best that I can to express myself, because I represent masses of people who are sitting there who would love to do what I do, but they've got that fear of, oh, but they'll say my pronunciation of words, they're going to laugh at me. Oh, but his English, oh, his sentence, his grammar, his accent and that. But those things mean nothing, and I've gone beyond
in the grand scheme of things.
In the grand
scheme,
scheme,
anything.
it's about content, and I'm happy. I'm happy. So to me, it's about that. You need to transcend that fear. So it takes also to have people around you who will sit with you and say, man, you're good to go.
That's why mentorship, that's why coaching is important.
Absolutely. And that's what I do to people. Without mentorship, without people who will look at you and say, no, forget about people. It's you here. Do this. And until you connect with that part of yourself that will start to see yourself connecting with that thing that you're meant to do, you tend to forget about what people are saying or doing around you. So I know this can go on, over and over again. But thank you so much. Maybe as we close,
yes, sir.
Theo. Now, what would you love to be remembered for? That's one of our questions. You know, if all was said and done, if now you were to reach the end of your, we're talking about lights getting off.
Yes.
Reaching the end of your life, how would you love to be remembered as Theo Mapheto? What will people say? What would you like people to remember you by? What would you like them to say? To say Theo Mapheto is, or Theo Mapheto was?
Well, I can think of a lot of things, but I will tell you something that's uppermost in my mind. How will my epithet read like? He stood. He stood for something, for God's sake. You've got to have the courage to stand for something.
Yeah.
He stood. There is a Mexican revolutionary who says, you must stand for something. You must stand for something, because otherwise you will kneel for everything.
I love that. I love that. And they say, when they say, how did he die? They say, he died on his feet.
Yes.
Not on his knees.
Yes.
You know, when you have died on your feet, there's something that I wrote around that.
Yes.
To say, it's better to die on your feet
than to live on your knees.
Now, that's the way to go. And Theo, Thank you so very much. And by the way, this relationship dates way back.
Yes.
2015.
Yes.
When I was launching my first book, and I'm just always proud of that. And
I've got to tell you, allow me to tell the story. There's a dear friend, mutual friend,
Yes.
who's unfortunately passed on. May God bless his soul.
Yeah.
Emmanuel Cheney. Emmanuel Cheney was one of those individuals, by the way, who had the courage to stand.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Pretty much the same sort of upbringing, same experience as you and me.
Yeah.
I think you guys must have met in the Toastmasters.
Yes.
Or something.
Yes. I was his president at the Toastmasters.
Were you?
Yes.
Jeez, man.
Okay.
Then he
Yeah,
tells
man.
me, Mapheto, you're going to love this chap.
Oh, man.
Like, who the hell is this? and then it was a Sunday. You reminded me of this. It was a Sunday. We came to exactly the same spot, these premises.
Yes.
You were opening up the premises, weren't you?
Yes, it was a book launch.
Oh, it was a book launch.
It was my birthday as well.
You had set up
22nd
a marquee
Yes.
in the garden, in the front lawn.
Yeah.
And then you start off, and you know what? I call it preaching,
Yes, man.
because it's more than talking, and I immediately fall in love.
Oh, man. Thank you. You make me, and people say you make me blush, you know? Anyway. Theo, thank you so very kindly, my brother. I truly appreciate you.
Much appreciated.
And this
for
is not the
inviting me.
end of it.
Shouldn't be the end.
Absolutely. And thank you so very much. And I think this is, when we spoke the other time, we were just talking about this book that
Yes.
had not been, completed then.
Yes.
The Neuroscience of Effective Leadership. And if you haven't gotten yourself a copy of this book, I'm not sure what you're waiting for. And ladies and gentlemen, it's been such a great pleasure and honor, to have Theo in our midst. And I really hope that you will learn a thing or two, and that will actually catapult you to the top. And from me, Veli Ndaba, the neuroengineer, I'm all about transforming minds from a place of mental darkness to mental light, because you were created for something great. And until you claim that greatness in you, you won't find peace in your life. So thank you very much. Until the next episode, keep going.